Hello, hello. Welcome to episode 42 of Heart to Heart with Hazel. I am excited to have Kit Bell here this week as our guest. And while we just wait for a couple more people to show up, I'll say hello to the people who are here. So Teresa, of course, is here, and she's going to keep things in good order in the chat in terms of adding links. She's already put Kit's link in there. Denise is here. Who else am I seeing? I guess we're I'll let those girls carry on there a bit. So Kit, because you are a professional artist, I thought it might help you understand a bit where my questions are coming from if I tell you a bit about who is likely to be here in the live and who is likely to be watching the replay.
Sure.
The Heart to Heart series is an attempt to get creatives from all sorts of fields together and in one place, supporting each other, being made aware of each other, subscribing and to each other's channels and that sort of thing. So I think that many of the people they're makers of some sort. They're crafters. They're people who have been creative all their lives, may or may not have their own YouTube channel, have maybe followed trends and done whatever was, hot in the moment. So, back in the day, and I don't have the brain to understand this, but back in the day, that might have been macrame. Never did get those knots.
I did.
Well, but we've already established that you have at least half your brain is scientific, so you got the edge there. And of course, a lot of journal makers in our midst as well. So, that's kind of the context that we're operating with here. Oh, and one thing I forgot to ask you when we were talking just amongst ourselves, is Kit a nickname, an endearment, a short form of something?
It's short for Kathleen. And
Kathleen.
I
Okay.
inherited both the name Kathleen and the nickname Kit from my English grandmother. So I guess it's more common to find Kits in the UK than it is in Canada. I've only ever run into one other Kit here.
So, have you made that your legal name?
No, it's still Kathleen.
Okay.
But,
in case if the government is asking, right?
Yeah, if the government is asking.
Yeah. So I was telling you before we went live that I don't really remember how I found your channel. I suspect it would have just come up in the feed as a recommended one. And I was enthralled with what you were doing, and of course, began binge watching. And I kept hearing you talk about, yeah, we're here in northern Manitoba collecting foliage, and this is what I've done with it. And I'm thinking, well, that's a Manitoba girl for you. Well, of course, that's not quite right. You live in Kelowna, BC, which of course is a neighboring province to my own in Alberta. And so tell us a bit about your annual trek to Manitoba and what you get out of that little traveling that you do.
Well, it's I'm not the Manitoba girl, but my husband is a Manitoba boy. So my husband, Bill Hedberg, was born and raised in the Paw, Manitoba, and also raised his own family there before moving to Kelowna, BC. So one of the things that we did almost as soon as we met is we went for a fishing trip in northern Manitoba. And I loved it up there, which was probably one of the things that made us work. he and I together. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing while we're up there, besides out fishing them, is I like to, get lots of photography done, get lots of reference images of waterfowl and trees and rocks and all the sunsets and beautiful things that Manitoba has. And then as I've progressed and moved more towards this gel plate printing stuff, I've taken that with me. So I did used to do plein air with, acrylics and things like that. But for the last few years, I've taken my gel plate with me. And um, as the botanicals started to grow, as the thing around the campground, all the little
Yeah.
weird things, I have no idea what they're called. I'll pick some and I'll do a printing session back at the fifth wheel. So it's really an enjoyable part of the year for us, and it allows us to. Well, he loves it, of course, because it's home for him,
Yeah.
and it's really become like a second home for me too.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you told me you go for 6 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So you must time it so that you're getting the peak of the botanicals where things are either in bloom or, at a kind. You don't want to be there in the dead of winter because you're not going to see anything. You'd have to be ice fishing.
I would love to say that that is true, but we time our visit for the spring pickerel run. So we leave here. Kelowna is, fully leafed out. Trees are blooming, all the rest of that sort of thing. The gardens are coming up, and we arrive in Manitoba in the middle of May, and there's nothing. Everything, the trees haven't come out yet. There's nothing, and then we leave at the end of June. We like to be back in Kelowna before the end of June, just so that we're not out there at the prime travel time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I get to experience spring twice. I get to experience spring here in Kelowna and then again in Manitoba. But we don't ice fish. I would draw the line there, but we
Yeah.
are out there sometimes in parkas and long johns at the beginning of the trip.
So I kind of think that if a girl likes to fish, that she's part tomboy. Is that true, or am I operating under a misconception?
Well, I'm not really sure because I've met lots of people that do enjoy fishing there, and I would say they're a wide range. I do not remove the fish from the hook. I'm too girly girl to do that. That's my husband's job. I have gotten okay over the years with putting a dead frozen minnow on my hook. I can handle that much. So I guess it's somewhere in between. But I would, and I probably am kind of in between. I'm not a girly girl, but I'm also not really a tomboy either. So, if you haven't tried fishing, don't knock it till you try it.
Well, yes. I'm thinking that it would be a little hard on those of us who kind of feel chop chop. We always have to be doing something, but the smarter part of me knows that that isn't true. That we do need downtime, and we need to be able to stare off into a sunset or a sunrise, and we need to be in silence, hopefully in nature. So it's just, yeah, it sounds like you've got the best of both worlds there.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you do need downtime, and uh, both my husband and myself, we're not so social that we need to be around people all the time. We enjoy people,
yeah,
but we also just enjoy our own company, and we sometimes sit in the boat with hardly any conversation going on for quite a while. We both just love soaking it in.
yeah. It's almost like you were psychic and knew that at some point in this interview, I was going to ask you if you're an introvert.
Oh yeah. Well, I
So,
think a lot of creatives aren't
yeah,
they?
so
And
a big check
yes,
mark by that question.
check mark by that.
Yeah. So, you attended the Ottawa School of Art. And from looking at, like, it was probably more on your website than your YouTube about description, that I found that you started out working in oils, you've worked in acrylics, and now, of course, you've made the turn or the leap to mixed media.
Mhm.
And I also was kind of surprised to learn that there had been about a 15-year lull when you really weren't doing anything in the way of art. So, I like to kind of have at least some semblance of an idea of what I'm going to say before I open my mouth. So I'm thinking, oh, when I ask her about that, I'm sure it's going to be either career or maybe child rearing or elder care, those things that women quite often get um, expected or sucked into doing. So, in your case, what made you lay down the brushes for about 15 years?
Horses. I was fine doing art. Well, I had quite an active career in computers and writing software and managing software projects and all that. I could still paint, no problem. There was the weekends and whatnot. But then when I kind of retired from my first career, which was in the computer industry, and I went into horses, full steam ahead. Horses don't take a break. So you are out there, 24/7, 365, and there was no time to paint. I trained horses, I taught riding lessons, I coached riders over hunter and jumper type things. Went to shows with my group of students and whatnot, and there was just nothing. There was the odd break, but no energy. So
Um,
I waited until, and then of course, once I got horses out of my system, which interestingly enough took another 15 years. I seem to have a 15-year attention span. First computers, then horses. And then I was able to get back into art, no problem. That was fine.
well, we'd have to, maybe you're the first, and we might need to make a note somewhere on the wall. We have someone who has a 15-year attention span because how very rare that is these
Yeah.
days. And, those of us that are of a certain age, I think kind of privately and not so privately kind of agonize when we see what people's attention span has deteriorated to,
Oh, yeah.
in terms of social media and so on. So it's great to know that you could, that these big chunks of time have been kind of your life has gone through seasons and cycles.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that is so at the time that you would have stopped paint, so you were working in acrylics. That was kind of the last, or were you still doing acrylics after you restarted the art
So
career?
when I was before horses, I was painting in oils.
Okay.
After horses, I found that I developed a bit of a respiratory sensitivity to oils,
Yes.
and the all that stuff that goes with them. So I painted in pastels for 4 years, and then when I decided I wanted to get back into painting on canvas again, I switched to acrylic,
Yeah.
and then I painted for quite a number of years. I painted landscapes in acrylic.
And you leapfrogged right over watercolor?
I've always done watercolor, pen and ink. Um, charcoal, a variety of media. I hate to feel that I only have one tool in my toolkit, but I would use watercolor more as a plein air medium, so something easy that I could take with me to Manitoba, for example, or
Yeah.
out on a walk. It's very light. It's very simple. You don't have a lot of
Yeah.
setup. You can just sit down on a bench and open up your little pad and do it. Um, but my primary paintings that I would actually show or have in galleries were originally on oil and then in acrylic.
So I could safely say that you never wanted to be a one-trick pony?
Yes. Yes. I even when I was doing landscapes, like really loved landscapes, loved trees, loved lakes, etc., I still got tired of doing them, and every once in a while, so then I would hop over and do birds for a while,
Yeah.
so waterfowl and whatnot, and then go back when I felt refreshed, and I felt like I could go back to trees.
Um, And I will point out to to the viewers that Kit does have a website. So in addition to checking out her YouTube channel and subscribing to it, of course, you probably want to check out her website, because there is a part of the website includes a gallery of some of her work.
Mhm.
And I have to say, your tree paintings are magnificent. The one in particular where it looks like you're looking up into the canopy of the tree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
it's such a unique position to have taken to capture that. So I loved it. And as a farm girl in Alberta, we just have grain farming. We just do grain farming now, but we have cattle. So when I saw that you painted cows, because there's a cow painting on your website, I thought, well, she's a girl after my own heart, because um like, cows are just kind of special in my opinion. Like, I don't know. Just I
I,
have
I
a
really,
kinship for cows.
they have character, they've got personality. And, but yet I don't know them personally.
Yeah.
So, I can paint, a cow or a few cows. And
Yes.
when I was doing that, I was particularly exploring a technique called gouache and ink resist. So you'll see
Okay.
a few of the cow paintings are fairly small and quite colorful with black. And that's a particular technique I was having fun with. Um, Oddly enough, people sometimes ask me, why don't you paint horses? You know horses so well. Why don't you paint
Yeah.
horses? And I've only ever painted horses as a commission. And
Oh.
I think it's because I know them too well. I know them like on a one-to-one basis. But anyway, it's sort of interesting. But yes, I do like to paint cows.
Yes, that's good. So I think that you mentioned that you worked in computers, and I don't know, do you want to tell us a bit more about that? Is like um again, I'm a bit of a some of us are a hopeless case, I think, when it comes to technology. But if you said in broad strokes, well, I worked in the finance industry, or like, but well, just take it away from there.
Sure.
Tell us
And
what you
I'll
what you
keep it
did.
short so that people's eyes don't glaze over. But
Yeah.
um, I actually have a degree in computer science from the University of British Columbia, and I graduated there in 74. So I call myself a dinosaur because I was there at the dawn of time when computers were first starting to become prevalent in companies. And I membership systems, I was involved with that, library systems for a couple of years, but the main one that I did was accounting and manufacturing software. So keeping track of all the inventory and what things need to be done out on the shop floor, and then shipping it off to customers and all that sort of stuff. And that was really interesting. I did that for 10 years. And I even started a computer company with a product that we sold back. And I guess I got out of that in 89. So that was the end of my computer career. But it was a hell of a ride. I mean, really, I got in at the right time. I was able to, push it and develop computer systems. That's very creative, guys. Computers and art aren't really that much of a stretch,
Yeah.
because to create a computer system, you have to see all the little bits and pieces, and then create something out of that people can actually use. So,
Yeah.
but I think what's really cool is that out of my experience in the computer world nowadays, for my YouTube channel and stuff, I have no problem with the technology. I quite enjoy it, actually. So, what would make most people's sort of go catatonic, the idea of having to, do video editing and all that sort of stuff. I just kind of enjoy that. So it complements what I can do on the creative side. So I can,
Yeah.
I can think and say, gosh, I'm doing this really interesting thing with the gel plate now. I would really like to be able to tell people about that. So
Yeah.
then, between my training background, like being able to teach hormonal teenagers to work with their horses. You can teach just about anybody to do anything, you know. So between my teaching background and the computer background and then my creativity, that is what got me really over to YouTube, because I
Yeah.
enjoyed all three.
Well, and, obviously I don't want anyone leaving the chat this moment, but I think, I would ask that you check out Kit's channel, because she has a degree of, um, I don't want to say perfectionism, because we now know that perfectionism is a form of mental illness. But a level of professionalism and um, calm, and we never see you ruffled. We never see you searching for a word. We never see you doing anything other than calmly, succinctly, precisely explaining your process. And talking to you here live, I think that's largely who you are. You're not, it's not like you're, searching for your next word, or can't keep your attention on the topic at hand. So you're not in any way needing to edit because you're a scatterbrain or you're squirreling out. So I think it's your personality, but it's very soothing to watch. And I think that's part of the appeal, that it's like she just so calmly says, well, you can do this too. So I think that's definitely an asset on your part.
I think I'm very, very fortunate because I seem to have a voice that people like to listen to. And I get that comment on my YouTube videos every once in a
Yes.
while. And by the
Yes.
way, I read all the comments and I respond to all of the comments.
Oh, good.
I find that's a very, that to me, I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if
because
people ever have a question, then by all means ask, because I will answer.
yes. Um, and I think that, certainly, it's great to be able to see someone like you in a setting like this, because again, my whole premise here is that if you and I met in a coffee shop, this is how the conversation would go. And I think it's great when a person is talented, but also is down to earth, uh, has a sense of humility, can laugh at themselves, and consider themselves sort of on an equal footing, and not make a person feel that they've asked a dumb question or whatever. So I did want to point out that you do have a distinction in that you're an associate member of the Federation of Canadian Artists.
Mm.
So do you want to tell us a bit about what that means? Like, is it that and $3 will buy you a cup of coffee, or or is it well, or $7 will buy you a cup of coffee? Um, what is the process for getting that distinction, and has it opened doors for you?
Um, it is quite interesting. So, for people who aren't familiar, the Federation of Canadian Artists is the largest art organization in Canada. There's close to 3,000 members, and they have chapters across, well, more in the West, but across Canada as well. So there, when you first become a member of the Federation of Canadian Artists, you are a supporting member. You have to go through a jury process with 10 of your paintings to, once you've passed that jury processing, you become an exhibiting member. So now you're allowed to enter FCA shows. Some of them are held at the big gallery down in Vancouver, lots of them in chapters across Canada, and some just online, which is really nice if you don't want to ship your work. So the next level from that is to become an associate member or a signature member. So AFCA is for associate, SFCA is for the full-on senior signature member. So you again have to apply through a jury process to do that. And obviously the bar is higher. So you want to bide your time and make sure you've got a really good portfolio of work to put forward for that jurying. And then you submit it and cross your fingers. So what that does is once I got my AFCA, what that meant was that I was now eligible to be a juror for the Federation of Canadian Artists and an instructor. So, even before I started to teach online courses myself, I was teaching courses for the FCA, either in person or via Zoom. And jurying's fascinating. It's a little bit intimidating because here you are sitting in judgment of other people's work. However, there's always 3 jurors, and we're anonymous. Our marks are, etc., are anonymous to each other. So you always feel, well, if I judge a painting a bit harshly, hopefully the other 2 will find it more appealing. And there is criteria, so that's good.
Yes.
But what all that does, and what it's done for me, is first of all to become a signature member, an associate member. I had to really up my game in terms of my composition and design, because you can have very, very good technique, but if you don't have good composition, your paintings are not going to make that bar. And then, of course, being an instructor and also a juror, you have to be very good at looking at a painting and seeing its strengths, but also seeing where it could be stronger.
Yes.
So that's kind of an interesting thing. So I think it's done a lot for me in terms of my personal push to get better and my personal education. And it's definitely gotten my name out there far wider than I would have been able to get it out there just as somebody who had never joined the FCA.
Well, that's very interesting. I didn't know about all those steps. And now, or all those levels. And there are, of course, societies, or is it? So I know that there are titles as well for watercolorists. So is that an offshoot of the same organization, or do they have their own association?
There are different associations for different things. So I believe there's a watercolor. I don't know quite what the name is, but I know there's a Canadian Watercolor Society. I know there's also something called the Society of Canadian Artists.
Yes.
They are much smaller than the FCA, but they are also very active. They're more active, pardon you guys in Ontario and Quebec, but back east. We like to think of it
The center of the universe.
But yeah, so there's different ones, but by far and away the FCA is bigger. And then like in the States, there's the Oil Painters Society of Americas, or OPS. And so there's different societies for different specialties as well as FCA. The FCA is very broad. They have everything except photography. They have a fairly wide umbrella.
So the thing that I think captured my attention was your the work that you're currently doing, which involves both collage and the use of botanicals through gel printing, as well as paint, sort of the ultimate, mixed medium. So you are very fond of using large pieces of tissue paper. So, and is this what okay, obviously it's easy to do that at home, but is this what you also did with these large pieces of paper and your gel plate, even on location in Manitoba, working out of a fifth wheel camper? So did you do all of that there?
I used a smaller gel plate. So
Okay.
I stuck to 8x10, and the collages that I created from the prints that I created there, when I got home, I did the collaging part, and those were about 10x10, so smaller. My botanical gel prints are usually about 15x20 when I'm printing them on tissue. And then I like narrow ones, so 10 by 20 canvases that I
Yes.
collage on, or I've gone up to 20 by 20 for different
Yeah.
collages.
Yeah, I tend to prefer those less than standard, or those ones that deviate a bit from the standard, because I'm thinking anybody can do those. So excuse me. You do a lot of negative painting.
Mhm. Yes.
When you get your piece to a certain point. So I'm thinking that most people, I'm guessing that most people, probably me included, would not want to have to do that. I'm getting a tickle in my throat.
Well, let me jump in while you have a little sip of water.
I'm grabbing a fisherman's friend.
Negative painting is super easy. It's really just painting around the object instead of painting the object itself. So if you think of that classic thing that you see every once in a while about, is it a vase or is it two people's
Oh,
faces?
yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
if you look at it one way, you see the vase. And if you look at it the other way, you see the two people looking at each other. So
Yes.
that's all it is. It's really not hard. And frankly, the negative painting that I do during my collage process is just kind of painting the lines. It's kind of going back to when you were a kid and you were using your crayon and painting inside the lines, you know. It's
Yeah.
not technically difficult at all.
Well, it just seems that it seems to me that it would be slow, and it would require a level of precision that maybe not everybody wants to aspire to.
Um, you pick the right brush for the job. So if you've got a
Yes.
bigger area, get out that 1-inch brush. It doesn't need to
Yeah.
take all day. And then if you need to get it in between two little areas, you know, into the tendrils of a vine or something,
Yes.
well, then I'll grab a little pointy thing, you know, and put that in there. So I don't think, you know, one thing that always struck me as being really slow, and I have a friend who does it, is painting with colored pencils. There's only one size of pencil and it's fine. You know? Whereas I can grab a 1-inch or a 2-inch brush and get quite a bit of area covered pretty quickly.
Yes, and you have a neat trick for actually attaching your gigantic piece of tissue paper to the substrate, that I think we could all benefit from, whether we're decoupaging napkins onto
Mhm.
a substrate, or, you know, our own gel plate prints. And that's just to sort of do it in stages. And of course, you're using gel medium, which reminds me, I do have a technical question for you.
Mhm.
Um, I did my own, certainly didn't study for a year or anything, but I took a number of courses a number of years ago, including a critique course and so on. Love the golden products. And of
Mhm.
course, am now, this many 20 years later, resurrecting these products and finding that a lot of them are still viable.
Mhm.
So can you tell me what GAC 100 is for?
Yes, I can. GAC 100 is to seal against substrate contamination. So let's say you are working on, you want to work on a cradle panel, for example, and you are wanting to either put gesso on it and prime it and then paint on it, or maybe you want to collage on it. You might want to collage right over top of the wood, or you might want to do something with white first and then collage on it. Or you want to mount some paper on it. Well, there is always stuff from wood that over time, you have to think in the long haul here, think about your
Right.
grandkids,
Yeah.
you know, that can seep through and contaminate even through gesso. So it can even come through gesso and contaminate whatever you've painted or put on top. So GAC 100 will seal that cradle panel for you, or other substrate if you've got something else, and make sure that nothing ever gets through from the cradle panel to whatever you're putting on top. So if you wanted it to be white, you would do the GAC 100 first, and then you would put your gesso on top.
So 300 years from now, when I'm long dead and that somebody comes across my work and they realize that they need to be able to, like the restorers with the
Mhm,
white
mhm,
gloves and all that, and they're, this masterpiece needs to get back to the original. We want it to be archival. We
mhm,
want it to have been properly sealed with the correct top coat so that it can be safely removed without
mhm.
destroying the masterpiece underneath. So thank you for
That
reminding
that is
me.
not, hold on, that is not GAC 100.
I know you're saying it's sealing the wood from
It's sealing the underneath. That's right.
yes,
So what you need for to put that seal
top
the
coat on.
top is a good quality UV protecting removable varnish. So that's what I like for my collages. I like the satin finish. I tested
Yes.
it out, matte, satin, and gloss. I found that the gloss looked a little too plasticky. The
Yes.
matte looked a little too dead, but the satin was just right.
Sort of like porridge and beds and
Yeah.
chairs.
Yes.
Okay, good. I think anyone who is doing gel plate work definitely should be rushing over your channel to see the video you did where you tested 10 different papers like that. I thought, oh my goodness, this woman should have a lab coat on and a like it just was a scientific experiment from start to finish, and it was so clear, methodical, and um like it wasn't willy-nilly like some of us might have done it, where it's almost more gut feeling than than science. I really found that that was so useful. And the fact that you did sort of cost comparisons of the
Mhm.
different materials as well. I just bought my first roll. I don't have it here, of the Yaku, no, Yakuso, no, Yaku. Black.
Yasutoma?
Yes, exactly.
Yasutoma. Yeah.
So I find it, I went to an art store in Edmonton and, they're very good there. But honestly, the guy had a hard time telling me based on, because they call it sketch paper, but I wanted, tell me, is this rice paper? So he had a heck of a time finding it, but then finally we came to the conclusion that it is. So I can't wait to do that, and I have to get on that quite soon. So maybe just to cut to the chase, what is your favorite paper to be using? I know you use a lot of tissue. Um, you use the Spectra, right?
Yes, I have. First of all, for what I do, I have two basic categories of paper. So transparent, which would be, the tissue paper, which means that I can layer and the new paint that's on the tissue will still show the stuff from underneath.
Yes.
And then I also
Beautifully.
like to use opaque paper, and the opaque paper will cover up what's underneath. So if I need to get, you know, a fresh area, sometimes you get a chaotic area, you need to simplify it. You can put a piece of paper. Now, so for my botanical prints, I print those on Spectra art tissue. So I can overlay the botanical over top of my design. And that Spectra art tissue, it's not horribly expensive in North America. It's available through Amazon, and it's acid free. So again, archival, long term.
Yes.
So that's great for that. And then I love the Yasutomo. If I had to pick just one, I would pick the Yasutomo sketch paper for my opaque stuff, because I love the way that it prints. It layers on the gel plate. You can pick up, You can print multiple layers on it. And then I love the way it collages. It's not so thick that it's sort of, it doesn't, it's not as thin as the tissue, but it's still thin enough that it's quite
Yeah.
delicate when you collage it.
So you're talking about the pads, right?
I use
You
the
buy
pad.
it in pad form, yeah.
Yeah, the 9x12 pad is the one that I usually use.
Yeah.
I'm just going to cut it up anyway,
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I bought some of those. I could not, honestly, I don't know. Do you ever buy anything from Delta Art in Edmonton? Because they do a mail order business as well. And I'll tell
They
you,
do, yeah.
I bought the oversized one and it was something like $11, which was, I thought, very cheap. So I bought two, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, that is great. I like the fact that you did a video. Well, I shouldn't say recently, because maybe it wasn't recently. But you acknowledge the fact that you, like all the rest of us, have a comfort zone, and how we tend to gravitate to staying in our comfort zone because it makes us feel comfortable.
It's
But
comfortable.
that you, but like me, because I've said that before in this context and in my videos, what is the use of doing the same thing over and over again? To me, if we're not growing, we're stagnating. If we're not learning, we're slowly dying. So you set yourself the challenge of working with colors that you don't normally reach for. And in your case, it was yellow and green. So do you just want to talk a bit about, number one, why you put yourself through that? Because not everybody wants to be uncomfortable. And, what the benefit was in the end.
It sort of goes back when I started to do a lot of gel printing. For whatever reason, I was using colors that combined into more a neutral palette. So purple, blue, transparent red iron, oxide, Payne's gray. So my resulting prints are not terribly colorful. Well, I think they're beautiful. And they have warm colors and cool colors in them, obviously, but they weren't very bright.
Yes.
So, and I've been doing that for a few years now. But when I do print with the greens and the yellows and whatnot, I love them. They're beautiful. But I'd go to collage them and I get stuck. Like, I don't know what was happening. It was just like, it just wasn't working. And I made a couple of collages I really didn't like. And, what do you do? So over the last summer, I guess, I decided to purposefully print half of my botanicals and stuff in yellows and greens with a little blue thrown in, maybe the odd little bit of transparent red iron oxide. The odd time there might be a touch of purple in there just to make me feel happy, but mostly greens and yellows, So I did that. So I acquired now a large stash of both botanicals, and then I went ahead and I made accent papers specifically to go with that color scheme.
Yeah.
So now I had quite a lot of stuff, all in that color scheme, all in that color family. And then I said, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to take out any of my comfortable colors. I am only going to pull out prints that specialize in the green. Maybe they have a bit of blue in them. Maybe they are more to the yellow side. So I did that. And I found a couple of botanical tissues that I like to think of as my inspiration tissues. And that usually determines the format, whether it's going to be tall and skinny or wide or whatever. And then I went through my accent papers and I picked out ones that would specifically go with that. And I think what I discovered in the end was it wasn't that hard. Once I only looked at those papers and those colors, and now that I had a really nice selection of them to choose from, that collage went together really as easily as any of the ones in my comfort zone. And I like it. And now what I've taught myself is that as long as I create the tools, i.e. the papers, probably in any color palette that I wanted to use. I could do it. But I do have to think of my papers as being my tools, just like tubes of paint. So,
Yes.
you don't want to start painting without the right tubes of paint. And I can't start a collage without the right papers.
Yeah. You kind of almost with a grin or a wink there said, you think your papers are beautiful. Well, of course, they are beautiful. And I would say the word that I would choose to describe the recent work is ethereal, because it is so, um, well, it's so layered. It's so, um, I think that those of us that feel a connection to the natural world also very much appreciate those organic shapes, and the fact that, it is something from nature. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it would probably be beautiful if you had done a red barn too, but this makes it, I think, even more special because it's got nature in it.
Well, and I love the fact that it really has nature in it. Like it was a plant, and
Yes.
I printed it, and this is the imprint that plant created.
Yes.
That is somehow for me different, and at this point in my journey, more interesting to me than if I picked up my acrylic paints and painted the same plant. Um, and it is, they are more ethereal, and the layering, and yet there's still a large part of the man-made world there because I use geometric forms, and I um, print in layers using stencils and various things like that. So it's a nice combination. I am really enjoying it.
Well, you have a section in your gallery, your online gallery, that you're calling geoganic. And I thought, oh, like, because I love words, I'm thinking, oh, geometric and organic. But you mean botanic, not organic.
No, actually, it came from organic.
Oh, did you? Oh,
When
I
I
did it.
came up
Okay,
with
good.
that name, when I came up with the geoganic, that's exactly, you said it exactly right. It was a combination of the geometric from the man-made world and the organic, whatever that
Yes.
may be. And that in this
Yeah.
case was plants. Yeah.
I also wondered because I just dug out my flower press, and of course, in Alberta, everything is still under snow. But I got flowers for my birthday, and I have some house plants and so on. So I'm back to pressing flowers. Do you ever press flowers, or do you just use the foliage fresh, so to speak?
That's a good question. I remember after my first summer of printing botanicals, I tried all kinds of weird ways of preserving them because I was kind of panicky at the idea of not having them available to print over the winter. Uh,
Yes.
but I do, I like fresh is best to me. I do like to do that. And frankly, a lot of the stuff that I really like to print is what other people would call a weed.
Yes.
Seriously, some of the stuff I have no idea what their names are, but it's stuff that I find around the edges of the dog park when I take my dog for a run, or out of the ditch, beside a parking lot, or and then there's nicer plants that I get out of my friend's garden and my garden. But yeah, so I've never really tried pressing them, but I have quite a few people in the course that I'm currently running that have recommended that to me. And they've even, gone over some of their processes of how they press plants so they can print with them at a later stage. And there's also something very cool that I've never experienced either called eco printing. Have you
Uh,
explored that at all? Or
Well, I have. I can't say that my results were the greatest, but it is quite the going concern in
Mhm.
this community. And I think, and you know, the thing, and this would just tie in beautifully with your love for transparent red oxide. Um,
Yeah.
you introduce rusty elements as well. When you
Oh,
make your bundle of papers, you're using, foliage, of course, but also introducing rusty things that you either find in the parking lot or the dog park or in the garage or wherever.
okay.
And of course, then make a bundle and boil it on the stove. So, yeah, I think you should definitely explore that because I'm sure you'd have your whole a whole new take on it.
Mhm.
Um, I just wanted to say that I took a course many, many, many moons ago and needed a flower press. So of course I asked my husband to make it. So
Mhm.
he's sort of the school that you make things to last. So much
Mhm.
of what we have will outlive all of us. So it's 3/4 inch plywood. I'm sure good both sides. Gigantic. The screws that he used in it are probably almost 6 inches long. So of course you need to alternate layers of cardboard, and you can either use you know well, I guess you could if you had a lot of money, perhaps you could use, watercolor paper or whatever. You want something kind of absorbent. But I dug this big old flower press out the other day, and there's some newspapers in there from 1992, I think. So you're layering, so you're wanting, the process is absorbing the moisture as
Mhm.
well as, of course, capturing the shape. And of course, the other trick is not to use very fleshy plants.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you're sticking to those weeds and things that you find, in the wild, you're not going to have that anyway at your disposal. And frankly, those unnamed, very um um what word am I looking for? The shape and the movement of those branches and those twigs and those stems. Like, I mean, you don't, that
Weeds,
that adds to
weeds
the
are
whole
beautiful.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I love weeds, and I love the fact they're unruly and they're not
yeah,
all perfectly aligned and stuff like that. Yeah,
yeah,
I really enjoy weeds.
yeah. I want to just have a look here at my notes to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Now, you, of course, I've mentioned that you have a website, so naturally, I suppose you can do that in your sleep with, your eyes closed and one hand tied behind your back because of your computer skills. Do you find that, I mean, I'm sure you're going to say that you enjoy it, so you don't consider that work or you don't consider that a burden of any kind. But do you find that as an artist that having a dedicated website is pretty well essential?
Um, I think it really depends on how you approach what you're going to do. So I, I think that most artists, once they get to the point where they are, maybe participating in shows and, marketing their work in some way, then I think having even a reasonably basic website is pretty important. You need somewhere for people to go and take a look or to remember, who you are. But I think the world is changing so much. I don't think people are going to stumble over you just doing like a web search for, clone artists or something. Um,
Yeah.
it's much tougher than it used to be. So, back in the earlier days, it was getting gallery representation if you wanted to
Yeah.
become an artist and sell your work. And then we got into the age of the internet, and then of course there was things like your website where you could actually sell, and there's things like Facebook and stuff where you could gain a following and Instagram and whatnot. And even that has kind of fallen by the wayside. Now, when I go to Instagram, all I see are wire fox terriers. When I go to Facebook, all I see are horses. It's what I it's what they show me,
Yeah.
and what you click on is what you get to see. And I never see my friends anymore, and all the rest of those complaints that we have. So I think things go through evolutions. I find updating my website really tedious, to tell you the truth.
Oh,
You have to take photographs of your new
why
work.
does that make me feel so much better?
You got to upload it, you got to type in your captions, you got to fiddle with the galleries. So it is, to me, that's a wee bit, that's tedious, even for somebody. I can do it, it's not hard,
Yeah.
but I struggle with making myself do it. But yeah, I think it just sort of depends. I know younger artists who are approaching things completely differently, and they're marketing their work in a much more digital world as designs. What we would have, uh, so they're marketing their artwork for companies to either resell or to create things that are then sold. So, yeah, lots of different ways that artists find themselves in a different position.
Well, and as much as I think I and perhaps some other people like to complain about, technology and algorithms and,
Yeah.
how they keep changing things right
Mhm.
as soon as we feel we have some competency in it. There have also been improvements because when I think back to the time that I was taking these classes, if a person wanted to submit their work for consideration in a juried show or, to a potential buyer, you needed to mail somebody slides for heaven's sakes. And
Yeah.
you needed to take those photos against a neutral gray background using an SLR camera. Well, my goodness, how many obstacles is that right there? So, in many ways, things have gotten easier. But again, the challenge is to get noticed. Um,
Yes, that's gotten
so,
harder.
yeah.
And mainly just because there are so many really, really good artists now. And a lot of them, Hazel, it's gray under this coloring job, by the way. A lot of them have gray hair. A lot of us put off really going into art until the careers are finished, until the families have grown up, and et cetera, et cetera. But now what I'm finding is there are so many talented artists. And how do you get noticed amongst that
Yeah.
sea of very excellent voices?
Yes. Um, eh, yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think, the people that get the most views, clicks, um, in kind, in kind promotion and so on, sometimes get it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Like when you think about that artist Banksy,
Oh, yeah.
you know, or Canada was I think famous at one point for buying that painting. What the heck was it called? That red stripe? Like, I mean, that was
Okay.
practically a
So
national
just
disgrace.
in defense of the red stripe, I mean, it was a horrible price that they paid for it.
Yes.
Absolutely abominable. But I have been in the National Gallery of Canada and I have stood in front of it. And that is a different experience. So
Yes.
let's not beat on the red stripe too much. But yes, I know there
The
are
price was
all,
crazy.
other than a handful of, really, really well known artists.
Yeah.
Um, it is really hard to get much in the way of recognition. I think that's one of the things that made me want to get into a group like the Federation of Canadian Artists,
Yeah.
because it's a peer group. There are a lot of artists there, and they hold lots of shows and they publicize them well. And uh, you do get click throughs onto your website and things like that. And it's an interesting sort of thing to be part of that kind of community. And although I might be a small voice lost in the sea of voices, at least I feel that it's a bit heard there.
Yes. Now you mentioned the course, and I also discovered it on your website.
Mhm.
It's a gel printing course. Um, do you find that because of COVID, uh, the lockdowns, the movement to Zoom,
Mhm.
um, and well, the way the world has changed, that online learning has pretty well replaced like, in other words, would there be any interest if you were to offer an in-person art course in beautiful downtown Kelowna? Or are you more likely to be successful offering an online course to the entire world?
Um, so I've got a couple of thoughts on that. So bear with me for a moment. So I would say that things are moving online, which is a good and a bad thing, and I'll explain that in
Yeah.
just a minute. Uh, I used to do a lot of in-person workshops. It would be tough to do an in-person workshop with gel printing, though,
Yes.
because getting enough people in the central Okanagan that wanted to take a gel print workshop might be a bit tough. Whereas when I'm looking at the world, I've got, well, I've got a waiting list. I took 30 people in the first class, and I've got waiting lists for the next one. So there is that. But there is also, I am at the point in my age where I find teaching like a 3 or 4 day in-person workshop beyond my physical capabilities anymore. Even teaching a 1 day in-person workshop, I find it takes me a week to recover, which is so bad, but it's true. And I'm very conscientious. If I'm not actively demoing, then I'm working the room, helping everybody. So
Yes.
yeah, by the time I work up my 60,000 steps that way, so I reached a point in my life where, to me, I don't want to do in-person workshops anymore. But I do have the technology background. So yes, after COVID, during COVID, actually, I jumped in there with rudimentary Zoom online courses, and we all stayed painting during that. Um, and then, but now I got to the point in my life where I say I didn't really want to do the in-person workshops, but I also know the limitations of on-demand online learning. So on-demand is simply in a format where you buy it and then you watch it at your leisure, and you really have next to no contact with the instructor.
Yes.
They're not looking over your shoulder or anything.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do, and I noodled this for quite a while last winter, I wanted to do an online course that combined the benefits of you being able to stay at home in your pajamas, if you like, using your supplies in your own studio. But I want to combine that with some of the benefits that I see in in-person workshops. And those benefits in particular were feedback and live ability to ask questions when you don't understand something and get
Yes.
a good answer from the instructor. So I wanted to combine those two things. And I'm really happy with the format that I came up with. I pre-recorded 6 modules that go through the various topics of gel printing. And because of my mathematical, super analytical brain, you can imagine that I put quite a lot of thought into that. And then, and I talked to a lot of people who had taken different kinds of online courses about, well, what's the best format and how do you deal with that? And so I came up with the format of on a Saturday, the module would be released. And like I said, that's pre-recorded. So now the people who are signed up to the course can watch it at their leisure. And then on Tuesdays, I hold 3 live Zoom sessions, different times to accommodate the different time zones. I have people from Europe and England, as well as all across North America, and even one from New Zealand, bless her soul. So, I had to be able to accommodate that. So
Yes.
those online sessions are designed to answer technical questions right away before they get the next module. They can find out if there's questions that they have about the current module, like what it is. Plus, they have the place to show me what they're doing if they're having a problem, or even if they're just kind of excited about it and they want to talk about it. So I think that's been pretty good. I think people have gotten quite a lot out of the course in that sort of, I almost like it's like a hybrid format.
And of
And
course, are the live sessions available as a replays as well?
yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course, because sometimes people are on holidays.
Yes.
There's people that maybe just aren't comfortable joining a live session. They would just rather watch a
Yeah.
recording. And one thing that they've commented on is that the topics that we talk about in the 3 sessions, I call them Group A, B, and C, because I'm really organized, are often quite different. So even if they've attended, say, Group A, they're saying that it's beneficial for them to go watch, Group C or Group A or B or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's been fun.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I've taken enough courses to have um, seen that in action, and I think it definitely does help. And I think that the size of your group is probably more manageable than some. Obviously, if there are hundreds of students, I mean, yay for the instructor, but not so good perhaps for the student.
Yeah.
So there's that. Um, that, I think, I guess I always wonder, and again, it doesn't matter. I was going to say it doesn't matter, but yes, it does matter. Now you've only been at this a short while, but what percentage of people pay for a course and never even started or drop out partway?
Oh, well, see, I did some research on that because
Of course you did.
of course I did. My mother was a teacher and my father was a librarian. It was in our genes. We have to research everything in our family. So I did. And for the on-demand courses where you simply buy the course and then they're often quite inexpensive. And then you can watch them anytime you want. And there's really very little interaction with the instructor. Those ones have an abysmal, like it's a 90%, I wouldn't call it failure rate, incompletion rate would be the
Oh,
correct term.
that high,
So
eh?
it is awful. And, as an educator and as somebody who likes to see things through, I was more interested in working with people who were prepared to make a bit more of a commitment. So, I tried to find the happy place price wise. I wanted to charge enough that it was worth my while, plus also enough that people were making a bit of a commitment to do this. And I think that helps. And I have had a pretty good, I did have some people who notified me almost immediately when the course started that things happened in their life. Hey, life happens. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So they were going to be going through the material later in 6 months or so. And that's absolutely fine. And I've invited
Yeah.
them to email me if they have questions, but they'll be able to watch the live question and answer
Yeah.
session. So hopefully a lot
Yeah.
of their questions
Yeah.
would be done in that, but there was only a handful. And everybody else has gone right through and has gone
On
through.
track. Yeah.
I'm really pleased with that because well, I don't know, makes me feel good, I guess, to feel that that we've worked well together as a group. My first group.
So I think that any of us who do videos, and especially, well, I would say, I was going to put a caveat on that and say, oh, it depends if it's more like an art project or a craft project. But I think the same would be true for any of those things.
Mhm.
And I know that you and I are on the same page when it comes to the whole idea of let it sit. You call it the overnight test. And I say that, I mean, I wish I had a nickel for every time I've said that. Excuse me, because it reaches a point where we are so intensely focused on what we're doing that we can no longer see
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
forest for the trees. We can no longer see if the piece has issues or not. Um, and I like to prop it up, in the living room or across the room in the bedroom or wherever, someplace, so that I unexpectedly see it or I
Yeah.
can deliberately look at it. And sometimes that process can take days or weeks. And a person might not necessarily immediately know the solution to fixing it. Um, so I know that you do that. Did you ever break any sort of a record for the amount of time it sat there percolating, or
Ooh.
how long does it typically take you to decide, yes, it's done?
Uh, well, I also use the overnight tests in underlayers to see if it's ready for the next stage. But yeah, I know, particularly I had one piece, and this was in my landscape painting days. So this was a few years ago, not that many years ago, but a few years ago. It took me 3 months. So and what it was is it was a problem child. So it was 24 by 36. So it was a large painting. And I really, really, really liked most of the painting, but there was that one corner. And it just would, I would paint it and then I'd take a look at it and I go, well, that isn't right. The color temperature, whatever, it's just not working with the rest of it. It's not holding up its end. So I would literally ruthlessly paint it right out, take another whack at it, and put it back in the living room. I'm a good one for the living room too. Get some distance plus different lights.
Yeah.
And after the third time that I painted it out, I just left it painted out and I put it with its face to the wall. I basically put it, go sit in the
In the
corner.
corner.
If you're going to be like that, go sit in the corner. And then about 3 months later, I noticed it. I went, oh, you're still facing the wall. Oh, okay. I put it out on the hearth in the living room. And, by the time that evening's television had ended, and me sneaking glances at it, I thought, what was the problem? Like, what's the big deal here? And, I took it in the studio the next day and within half an hour, I'd finished the painting. So yes, it just sometimes takes time. I think in the 3 months I had cooled down a little. I had maybe forgiven it. I had forgotten it, certainly. And, without that sort of fresh, it's not going well trauma, I could see the result. I could see the solution. And it was simple. And it just, yeah.
I do like the fact that you call them problem children because that's exactly how they seem. And
Yes.
I love that. I'm glad I asked the question because now I will have that visual forever.
Go
If
sit in
we
the
have
corner.
if we have a difficult child, we can just put it in the corner and yeah. And honestly, we continue to evolve as creators and as artists ourselves too.
Yes.
And sometimes, maybe we paint ourselves into a corner. Maybe we
I
get
did.
into we get into a situation, um, and I'm not talking about you, where we get into a situation where maybe we just don't have the knowledge, the skill set to
Mhm.
fix it, and that comes with time and practice and so on. I was Some of the people who watch my channel regularly will know that I started an acrylic painting. Oh, this is several years ago, probably during COVID, and had some modeling paste on it and so on. And I did a video where I basically showed 3 or 4 canvases, and I said, okay, in my opinion, these things all are not finished. Which would tell me in the comments, which would you like me to work on?
Mm.
And so they said which one they thought I should work on. So I did something that I learned when I was taking art classes, in that, those last few marks are so critical. Although pretty well anything can be fixed, but they're critical. So you don't go in, willy-nilly. So I cut out some paint chips that I thought were going to maybe be the solution. And
Mhm.
I used sticky tack to stick them to the canvas so that I could see the different, it wasn't necessarily the right shape, but it was the right color and I
Mm.
thought the right position. except I don't know what in the hell happened to how they make sticky tack, but it got all icky. And
Ooh.
before you know it, weeks later, these things are falling off. And anyway, it wasn't pretty. I still haven't finished the painting, but have you ever done that where you temporarily put a patch on in a color that you suspect might be the answer, rather than actually painting it on and then realizing, oh, wrong.
You're not going to be surprised at the answer to this, but I do it digitally.
Oh,
So I have done that where I have been sort of like, okay, so I need something different here. I need something, maybe a different color in the background or whatever. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll photograph the work, bring it into, program like, well, Photoshop. It's simpler programs to use now. But yeah, something like that. And then, digitally just paint some colors on there, and I can put them on different layers so I can switch back and forth,
oh,
So
aren't you smart?
I've done that, and it the low tech way would be what you described.
Yeah.
I've heard of people who have taken um, like tracing paper and put it over and done watercolor wash on top of it to see what it
Oh,
might look
okay. Yeah.
like. And actually, I did that one time too. I had a foreground in a painting that I didn't like. The trees, the background, the lake, they were all just beautiful and fine. But the foreground had gotten kind of jumbled and ugly, and I needed to do something with it. So first of all, I put a veil over it, translucent white, just to knock it back, and then I put a piece of tracing paper over it. And then I went and I took the tracing paper and I sketched onto it with a piece of charcoal, using different references, different kinds of rocks, different kinds of shadows that might work. And then, tape that on the physical painting and put it in the living room for a while. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's okay. And then I went ahead, and so it wasn't color, but it was shapes, which is
Yes.
what was bogging me down.
I just wanted to pause and say I have been and apologize that I've totally been neglecting everyone in the chat. I haven't said hello to anybody since the very beginning. And I hope that you understand that this is because this conversation is fascinating. I do know that way back when we were talking about fresh versus dried plant material, um, Susie wanted to know if you use actual twigs. I think I know the answer, but you answer it.
Um, well, if you went to like a tree and pulled off some twigs, they might be a bit bulky and also quite possibly a bit large. But what I find in the local ditches,
You go to
where
all the best places.
I go to all the high class places, is
Yeah,
there's lots of weeds that in the fall, they're almost like little sticks, right? And
yeah.
they look like, you pick one and it's actually, you can get the same effect if you dry out baby's breath, by the way. And if I look at them and I thought, gosh, that really looks like a little tree. So what I'll do is I'll bring them home and put them under weight to make them two-dimensional instead of whatever they were, which is usually quite three-dimensional.
Yeah.
And then they become my twigs. So I call them twigs, but they're maybe the lesser form of a twig.
Yeah. So I try to do all my research for an upcoming interview close to the time that the interview is going to happen so that it stays fresher. Um, but of course, I watch other videos as well. So was it you that was using baby's breath and had a hell of a mess where all
Yeah,
the little heads were falling off and you had to pluck
yeah.
at your gel plate with practically with tweezers to get it clean?
Oh, I have a pair of tweezers beside my gel plate. But yeah, I used baby's breath from a bouquet. So
Mhm.
it was at a time of the year when there wasn't really much anywhere in the yard. I think I'd managed to find a few little leaves that still had a little life in them from outside. And
Yeah.
I had some baby's breath, and then I had some twiggy type things. So I put it down thinking that this was going to give me some really beautiful. I'd used like a really dried version of baby's breath where I'd gotten rid of all the little seed heads first, and
Oh,
it had
okay.
been really pretty. But this one, oh my goodness sakes, it was a mess. And it printed fine. I got the prints off, but the wash up on the gel plate, oh, that took me forever.
Yeah. One of the plants I love the most is Queen Anne's lace, and it of course presses and prints beautifully. So that's if anyone is starting a list of what to look for. If you're still on your yellow kick, you could also look for Solidago, which is sort of it's kind of a rich yellow gold color. It's also a weed. I don't know if you, well, I mean, we in the prairies we have it, of course, but um, I also wanted to talk about your well, you mentioned one of the things that I wrote down here, and you mentioned it earlier on too, and I didn't stop you. Um, Veil, the idea of using a veil. Now,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
in a video, you contrasted a veil to what was it? Maybe
Well,
gesso?
there's glazing. There's
Oh,
two technical
glazing,
terms.
maybe. Okay.
So glazing and and a veil. So having painting a glaze or painting a veil. And
Okay.
by the way, if you're just painting thickly, it's not either. You're just painting, right?
Yeah.
But a glaze is meant to use on top of something that's dry. So maybe a painting that you want to change the color on. And a glaze is a diluted transparent color. So it's kind of like a stain. So you can use it to modify hue or value or color temperature, which is really interesting. If you have an area in your painting that's too bright, you can tone it down quite easily just by putting a thin veil or thin um, glaze over it. But glazing will always make it darker because you are adding another layer of pigment between the white of the surface, say the canvas, and the viewer's eye. So whatever you had underneath it is whatever it is, and then you put another layer of pigment over top of it with the glaze, is going to alter it, is going to always make it darker. So to get back something that is lighter, you can do a veil. Now a veil is the same. It's a diluted paint, but this time you use a lighter opaque paint. So like titanium white, yellow ochre. There's all kinds of opaque paints. And what they do is it's kind of like a bride's veil. You can see the bride's face through the veil, but
Yes.
it is a little hazy. And that's the
Yeah.
idea of a veil in painting. I can make an area lighter if I need it to by painting it with a somewhat diluted version of white, for example. So I'll sometimes do that if I want to lower, bring the value down. And you can use anything from almost solid white, which will be pretty not too transparent, to something that's quite diluted with like gloss medium, for example, and that would be very transparent. But it's more translucent, I should say. It's not transparent; it's translucent.
Yeah. So, those would be your two go-tos for fixes, more so than ever using gesso.
No, I wouldn't use. Oh, okay. So sometimes I get a non-cooperative area of a painting, and when I want to knock that back to almost back to square one and build up my layers in paint again over again, then I will usually use a combination of gesso and titanium white. Gesso is made to adhere to something really absorbent like raw canvas. Is not so good at adhering itself to an existing paint layer. It's not intended to be used over top of an existing paint layer. But titanium white's not very opaque. So if I want to get back to something that looks like my canvas, but I want to have a little bit of tooth in it, like my original canvas, I will mix gesso with titanium white and use that. And that was more for acrylic painting. I don't really use that in my collages. But and it's all to get back to that idea of it needs to be permanent enough for your great grandchildren. Hey, if you're not into that, don't worry about it. Just use whatever product you like.
Well, yes, I think my illusions of grandeur have been to the point where, yes, I don't, although I have to say that I have paintings that I've done that, 20 or 30 years ago that are still, if you use artist quality product, are still light, fast, and so on. They're
Absolutely.
holding up very well. And especially if they were properly sealed in the end. I do typically get to a series of questions that I repeat kind of from interview to interview. We've already done the introvert one. How do you feel about purple?
I love purple. Dioxazine purple. It's so funny because when I was a landscape painter, I mean, why would you use purple? But then as I got more experienced as a landscape painter, I found out, and this was through, blogs online and stuff like that. There's an expression, I think it was Ian McKinley said that for the green problem, because sometimes greens are difficult in landscape paintings to paint. And he said, how did that go? Orange is the secret and violet is the friend. So when you're painting a landscape, if you put just a small amount of orange into your green mixtures, it just warms them up a little bit. And then if you put violets close beside them, say glaze the shadows with purples and violets, then it just makes everything very much richer. And oddly enough, since I started to do gel printing, I think one of the ones I use almost every time I'm in my studio is dioxazine purple. But, it's not raw out of the tube. It'll be combined with Payne's gray, ultramarine blue to give me a really nice blue violet, or maybe dull down a little bit with my good friend transparent red iron oxide. I love purple, and the more that I work with it, the more I love it.
I've asked this question obviously for a lot of people, and a lot of people love purple. So we like to say purple lovers unite. I have to say you're the first person though to say dioxazine purple. So I guess we're clearly talking to an artist here.
Yeah.
I also wonder whether or not you choose a word of the year. Are you familiar with that concept?
I am. And I think I saw it in one of the videos I watched of yours to see what it would be like to be on this podcast. I don't intentionally go out there and seek a word of the year. I think one word that really is part of my being is exploration. I really want to keep pushing the boundaries. And I think what happened to me with the landscape painting is it just got a little too easy. Like for a long time, it was hard, and it was hard to reproduce, and it was hard to compose, and it was hard to make it interesting because it's all green and you got to find some other colors to paint. But it became really easy. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to explore and find myself here in mixed media, which, believe me, isn't somewhere I never dreamed I'd ever end up being a number of years ago.
Well, and again, it just circles back to what I said earlier. We're either moving forward and growing, or
Mm.
we are, little by little dying. And I applaud you for, recognizing that maybe, okay, been there, done that. It's time for something new.
Yeah.
Because frankly, if it doesn't continue to challenge us and make us stretch, um, why do it? You know,
Yes.
although
Yeah.
I think there are people who are in a rut and just perhaps don't know it, or are just
Well,
way too comfortable there.
you know, if you don't mind, if I take a couple of minutes here, um,
Sure.
I got asked by the Federation of Canadian Artists to be part of a 6-course series of classes that they'll be offering, I think, in the summer. And it's six topics by 6 different instructors, which is kind of an interesting approach. They asked me to do the one on experimentation.
Oh,
I love it. I'm having so much fun researching and thinking of how I want to go about this.
yeah.
So, not to reveal too much, but where I started was I thought, okay, so some artists love to experiment and they love to try new things. And yet I paint with a consistent group of ladies that we've been painting together for years. And
In
some not so
person.
much.
Sorry, in person?
Well, not so much anymore, but
Okay.
yes, we used to do it in person, then we did it by Zoom, and now we do it most of the time in person.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, so I know these ladies pretty well, and they've changed over the years. So different people have come and go from the group, but and there are some people who are really like experimentation, like stay
Yeah.
away from me. But they're really good artists, and I do see them evolve and stuff like that. So one of the things I wanted to do was explore the stages of artistic growth, because I see some people pushing beyond and some people just kind of staying in their comfort area. So
Yeah.
it was quite interesting. You go on to ChatGPT, which I actually do use so very selectively for things, and
Mhm.
uh, and asked them to explain that. And I Googled it, what he described. And so anyway, what it boiled down to was at the beginning, the first stage is just getting to learn your tools, learn
Yes.
how to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you're trying to learn how to paint, you got to learn brushwork, you got to learn color mixing, you got to learn some basic composition, you got to learn how to transfer what you see onto a canvas. The second stage is, so it's just sort of how to do it. The second
Yeah.
stage is where you start to gain confidence, and now you start to be able to do what you want to do, and now you start to develop a bit of a style, and you set out to paint something, and you have pretty good chance of getting what you want. So you have that confidence stage, and then there's and the next stage is where you're absorbing everything that's around you, and you're incorporating some of that into your own work. So brushwork that you see from the Impressionists, or from people that you see at like people that are at a gallery, artists that you see at a gallery, or your friends, or whatever. You learn new ways of approaching it, and you combine that. So it's that stage where it looks like me, but it also looks like them, and then there's this stage where you become discombobulated. So and that's where a lot of people will either turn back or turn forward and push through. So you get to that point where I can keep doing what I've been doing, and I can keep getting better at it. My work will continue to receive recognition or whatever, but I don't feel comfortable pushing past and
Mm.
going backwards, if you will, trying things that are ugly again, trying things that are not going to receive recognition, etc., to do that. So there's a kind of a fork, and I don't beat people up for taking one fork or the other. It's a personal choice. It depends where you are in your life. And then beyond that, the next stage is basically exploring with intent, trying it out, making small work because you don't know if it's going to work out or not. So you just try stuff and throw everything at the wall and see what works, see what interests you,
Yeah.
and then start to follow that up. This is what happened to me with the gel plate. I wasn't even starting out to use the gel plate. That wasn't the intent of my exploration. But for some reason or other along the way of what this other area that I was exploring, I pulled out this thing I'd had for years, a gel plate, and I started incorporating that. And then I went, ooh, that's cool. And then I started to explore that. And that led to all kinds of different, well, my friends call it the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
all different kinds of things. And then if you get the last stage, in summary, the last stage of artistic growth is your personal voice, where you have truly found out, this could only be me. When somebody,
Yes.
when I see something and I know nobody else has ever done really anything like that. And it's not because it's totally unique. New is so last century because all the 20th century artists were trying to find the next new thing. It's not
Yep.
that so much. It's just that it shows your voice. It's your choices that are in it.
Yes.
So it's just kind of interesting. But I obviously am one of the people that wanted to push through the comfort zone into
Yeah.
other things. But you have to go back to the beginning. You have to go back to step one and learn new tools. You've got to develop confidence all over again. You've got to incorporate more influence. It's like you're starting over. And I think that's what some people don't want to do. They don't want to go back to the beginning again.
It's there's so many things I want to say. But and forgive me for those of you who have heard me say this before, but I used to think to myself, boy, I bet you I could be a pretty good artist. And as long as I never picked up a brush or put a brush to paper, I was brilliant. So anyway, I got fed up with myself and I said, okay, and I won't say the crude way of saying it, but it was like, get off the pot and do it. So
Yeah.
I signed up for basic fundamentals. And this was a la-di-da instructor who had come to Edmonton via New York. She had been a practicing artist there, teaching at colleges and so on. I guess fell in love with an Alberta man, moved to Edmonton, loved the Rocky Mountains and so on. Anyway, first day of class, and this was the same year my daughter was starting grade 1. So the analogy and the metaphor was perfect. Anyway, the instructor says, in this class, I'm not going to teach you how to paint pretty pictures. I'm going to teach you how to see, and you're going to have fun. And week after week, I would be driving home from the city with a splitting headache, tension headache, thinking, so when the hell does the fun begin? Because here I was like my daughter in grade 1. You want to please the teacher, you want to have the right tools, you don't want to be the slow one in class. You want to get it, and eventually, of course, I got past that, but I'm thinking it's not easy being a beginner. We have to be so kind to ourselves. And we have to power through it as well. We have to be prepared to be uncomfortable to get better.
Can I read you something?
Sure.
So this is something that I have on my desktop. Just forgive me for a moment. I just have to, here we are. Now, this is actually something that somebody wrote about writing. So it's for authors. It's intended, but it works perfectly well for artists as well. Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there is this gap. For the first couple of years, you make stuff. It's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. Most people I know who do Interesting, creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have this special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. And if you are just starting out, or if you are still in this phase, you got to know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you'll finish one story. Well, in this case, it might be a sketch or a journal page or something.
Yes.
It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap, and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. It's going to take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through. Ira Glass. Anyway, I have that. I found that on the interweb somewhere,
Yeah.
and I saved the image of the quote and I have it on my desktop because, it's true. We
We-
all go through that stage where we have more ambitions than we have skills.
Well, and if you don't mind sharing that with me, or emailing to me, I would appreciate it. I love words, and I think it obviously bears repeating, and of course I could share it with anybody else who wants it as well.
Mhm.
I found a post-it, and I don't know what the source was. I don't know when I wrote this, but I wanted to run this past you. There are 5 points here, and you can tell me if you agree with it or not. The title that I have here is More Productive Artist. Number 1, work on multiple pieces. Do you do that?
Okay, so most people I know do. And most people, especially if you're working with a slow medium, by the way, like oil, you have to.
Yeah.
I jokingly call myself a serial artist. I do one piece and then I move on. So no, I
Oh,
don't. And that
well,
it's a personal quirk, I would say, more than
yeah.
an ideal.
Well, and what I sometimes say in my videos is that and again, you don't have to feel like you need to defend yourself or anything, because frankly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But what I say to people is that I was sort of taught that you want to work on multiple pieces so that it prevents you from getting so micro focused that you're working on that same square inch over and over again and can't see a damn thing. You can't see what's going on because you're
Mhm.
so hyper focused. So I think there's value in that, and that's and of course there's
I
the
think
flip
there's a
side of
lot of value in it. I just don't do it myself.
yeah. The potential downside is starting a whole bunch of things and never finishing anything.
Mhm.
So that is a danger there. Okay. Number 2, explore a theme in multiple ways on multiple pieces.
Now that is interesting because working in a series is something that, again, highly recommended to me over the years. But when I was doing landscape painting, I don't think I really worked in a series. I'd go from, mountains to birds, back to trees, back to lakes, and bounce around a lot. And there was a commonality behind that work. But when I started to print on the gel print, I started to work in series, and it is so valuable. Now, one of the reasons why it is in gel printing is because you can't just work on one thing. There's
Yeah.
drying time,
Yeah.
there's the plate setup. You're not going to just set up the plate and spend all that time and then print one thing and then wait till tomorrow to work on layer number 2. That's not practical. So now I batch print. So I will print, say 10 or even maybe 20 things at a time where I've got all the materials out and, I vary it up. It's not all the
Yeah.
same. And then I will progress with that batch of stuff to the next phase. Maybe out of the
Yeah.
20, only 15 will make the cut and the other ones become collage fodder. And then I'll progress with layer number 2. And with gel printing, there is no guarantee of a successful outcome. It is not entirely. It is very persnickety and random. So out of the 15 that I take to layer number 2, I might get 8 or 10. And this is because of all my experience that I'm achieving this kind of a success rate. That's pretty good. My students, I tell them, hey, if you get 1 out of 10, be happy. So yes, I have very much started to work in series. And I did that the one that we talked about, the Geoganics series.
Yeah.
There are 44 works in that series.
Oh, cool. So with that work on 20, 15 maybe turn out right, and the other 5 are relegated to the corner?
No, they are. Sometimes there's things that I just don't want them right now. So I'll put them into a stack of layer ones that will use at a later date. Or if they are really pretty but ugly, like something went down wrong and it's just not coming out, then I might use them as collage paper for my collages. So
okay, remember that, but ugly. Okay, number 3, carry a sketchbook everywhere. Are you that kind of an artist? I mean,
no.
Probably more so in the past than with the current thing you're working on.
I never was.
You're going to be 5 for 5 here.
I know. I'm just going to totally strike out here. I never was that person that carried a sketchbook. I would go out for the purpose of sketching, and I would take a small stack of supplies. When we're boating, I have a little stash of sketching supplies because I might get a little tired of the fishing or if I outfish my husband too far and I want him to catch up, because I'm a good sport. Then I'll pull out and do some sketching. But I never carried it with me everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. How about this one? Number 4, work small.
Oh, hey, I'm all over that. So I am a great believer when I was doing landscape painting, great believer in doing thumbnails. So, you've got these photo references, which might be printed, they might be on your monitor, it might be on your iPad, they might be anywhere. But do not just start painting that. Work out your design in little thumbnails, notans, whatever you like. When I first explore a new media, I will work small. What's the point of doing a 20 by 20 until you've done a few 10 by 10s? See how the process goes. Let your exploring be in something a little smaller,
Yeah. Okay, number 5, and this, I'll have a supplementary one to this one. Keep equipment and supplies set up.
I do. So downstairs, I was very fortunate a few years ago in our rec room. My husband finally decided to get rid of the non-used pool table.
Yes.
So I was respectful of the man cave for a couple of weeks. I was trying to respect the fact that he was down there. And then I sort of thought, sweetie, do you think I could have a couple of tables down here to help me with the gel printing and somewhere to put my Cricut cutter and things? And he was kind. And we went out and bought a couple of used banquet tables and put them down there. And now that half is totally mine. But yes, I have my gel plate set up down there. So down there, I've got everything that I need for that. Up here is where I will either do easel work or if I'm doing something flat. I've got all my regular acrylics up here and my other stuff. So I've got 2 areas of the house that are set up all the time.
Oh, that is a blessing.
It is.
So you don't have very many videos in your channel. I think maybe 54, if I'm not mistaken. So is one of them, and if it is, I'm sorry I missed it, is one of them perhaps a studio tour? Have you ever done a studio tour video to show your setup and your...
No. Okay. So you know how people like to work in beautiful studios?
Yeah.
And keep their stuff organized?
Yeah.
I'm not
We hate those people.
I have really, really messy, disorganized places to work in. And that is entirely my own making. And I like it that way. So I have, containers for paints and stuff like that. And, I will clean up, periodically. But I need, for my YouTube videos, I needed to have, a background
Yeah.
that I could use as, for the parts of my videos I call the talking head.
Okay.
Introductions to the video,
Yeah.
some little theory in the middle. For my online course, you've got explanations and stuff. I needed to have somewhere where I could film that. So I took a corner of my upstairs studio. I cleaned up and staged one half of the bookcase. The camera only goes over to the edge of the cupboard, which will never be shown to anybody else. And herein lies my beautiful space that I make my talking heads. I have always been like that. I will tidy up between projects, but my studios are not something I want to show to anybody.
Okay.
So
So
all you
don't.
get to see is top down
Okay.
of either my collage area that I work in, or top down of my printing area. I have done little pans of, the printing table, but I crop it severely on both ends.
So we better not hold our breath waiting for that video to
No, there
appear.
will not be a studio tour.
Okay. Well, and I too have been, I can't seem to get my poop in a group here enough to get to do a tour either. But anyway,
Hey,
um,
I
I live in hope.
have let go of that guilt, of not having a studio that's presentable.
Yeah.
I let go of that a few years ago because I thought, hey, this is my creative space. It's for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be up to somebody else's
Yeah.
standard. So for those of you out there, if you haven't cleaned up your studio for several years, you are in good company.
Okay. So we'll just call you an enabler. One thought that ran through my head as you were running, well, two things. The thing, that exploration thing that you're doing for the Federation, is that course, or well, is that whole series of courses going to be available to the public, or is that members only?
No, it's the Federation. They just have a slight price difference. So if you're not
Okay.
a member of the if you're a member of the Federation, you get it a bit less expensively. This particular series, like I for the last few years, I've done, I participated in teaching their foundations program. So the foundations program is 8, and they are more, I don't want to call them basic topics. I would call them, beginner to intermediate level topics. So elements of design, principles of design, composition. I teach one on backgrounds, layers, and glazing. There's, color. There's how do you get from your inspiration photography into your canvas? So there's various topics, and they run that annually or even twice a year. They will run that, and this through Zoom. Each of the classes is 2.5 hours long. And anyway, so this one that they've asked me to teach, and I think it starts in the summer, if I'm correct. They are doing this for intermediate to advanced artists. So some kind of got to know your jargon a bit to want to take one of these classes. But all of the classes that the Federation has, a lot of them are online, and anybody can participate. Like I say, it's just cheaper if you're a member.
So is this a good reason for people to sign up for your newsletter? Because you would, of course, be talking it up as that time gets closer.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I only put out a newsletter once a month, so low pressure for me, but also it won't be spamming your inbox. So I will talk about things that I've discovered in the studio, maybe topics that I sense there's an interest through comments to my videos online. I'll, sort of sense that there's some interest in a topic, so I'll do that. Often it's about something, well, I'll say to myself, okay, I'm finally going to challenge greens and yellows. I really want to do that. I've been
Yeah.
setting myself up for success by printing these papers. So I'll talk about that challenge in the newsletter, like,
Yeah.
why is it a problem for me?
Yeah.
Why did I decide now I wanted to do it,
Yeah.
and stuff. And I'll reference the video that's online. And then of course, when it gets closer to the time when I might be participating in an online critique or class or something like that, for sure, I'll get that information out in the
Yeah.
newsletter as well.
And Teresa has already put that in the chat for anybody who wants to do
Oh,
that.
thank you.
The other thing that occurred to me, and it's just a confirmation of what you were saying as you were going through those phases, and I wish I would have been taking notes instead of just, gawking and listening. Sometimes it's hard to multitask, though. It made me think of Malcolm Gladwell and his theory that we need to put in 10,000 hours doing something before we reach a level of proficiency. And it's basically an apprenticeship, and yes, we can be dabblers, and we can, maybe there's some benefit in that, but if we want true proficiency in something, there are some dues that need to be paid.
We call it time behind the brush. And it's absolutely true. If you want to become good at whatever it is that you're doing, it's that stages of artistic growth.
Yes.
In the first stage, it's not about creating good work. It's about volume. It's about committing to putting in the time to get better at drawing or better at brushwork or better at whatever it is that you want, which will enable you to go on and become the artist that you want to be. But yeah, it's time behind the brush. For gel printing, it's time on the roller.
And of course, we have a smart crew that tunes into these chats and watches the replays, so everyone can make their own, modify that advice to their own situation. And
Absolutely, yeah.
it applies to anything, whether it's, cooking or child rearing or making journals or sewing or whatever. Got to put in the legwork.
That's right.
We have now been chatting and laughing and learning for 2 hours, and it's flown by. I'll just apologize that I wasn't more active in the chat, but I think that Kit really shared a lot of information, provided a lot of value here. And that was worth the price of admission. So just before we close, are there any final thoughts that you would have? Maybe if you were, if you could talk to your younger self, or if you're talking to someone who is, because I did notice a couple of comments in the chat that people are saying, I someday I'd like to take an art class. So
Mhm.
what advice would you offer to somebody who maybe like me thought, oh yeah, I could be a painter, but you kind of eventually have to put your money where your mouth is and not just, you know, like actually do it.
I think a lot of us are very, very artistic people, but our lives have not allowed us to become what we might think of as artists or crafters or whatever, because we've been busy doing other stuff. And think about it. If you're at a point in your life now where you think you could take, that you'd like to do it, then just do it. So you need some knowledge to begin with. So find some classes, or maybe a good, instructor, if you have one in your area where you can, take lessons directly from them. That's always a great situation if you can. Try to participate in a community, like this kind of a community, or the FCA, or my group of 10 friends, or whatever. Because if you make that kind of a commitment, then you will do it. You will spend your hours behind the brush. If you go every week to Susie's house and sit down and have coffee and gab and paint paintings, and over time, those paintings will get better and better. And maybe it's sort of a question of,
Kid, you got to take this.
I can't, Bill.
Well, it's an appointment with a dermatologist, so what do I do?
Take a message.
It's a recording.
Okay, I'll deal with it later. Anyway, so where was I? Because that sounded pretty good. So yeah, find that community, because if you are going to go and paint every week, you'll make the effort to do it. If you're just sitting at home, and that's pretty hard, y'all can always find something else to do. You can always
Yes.
listen to the recording. The dermatologist, I know exactly what that's all about, and it's not a problem. And
I have this rash.
yeah, so they're just confirming the appointment that I had. But if you make an appointment with yourself, make an appointment with other people, then
Yeah.
you will get out there and you will get it done. That made a huge difference to me,
Yes.
to join this group of ladies that was painting every week.
Okay,
That made a
let's
big
not
difference.
lose that point. I just want to read a couple of comments. Richard Turton said, Kit is a fabulous instructor. I'm currently taking her online gel printing class. I highly recommend it. Emoji with the heart eyes.
Thank you, Becky.
Teresa says, thanks, Hazel, for such a variety of content for helping us grow. Looking forward to watching some videos, Kit. Great sense of humor, and you had me at messy workspace. Okay, and I think this may be the first time Who's Your Mama is here. So welcome. She says, this is where I get all my encouragement. Here on YouTube, a great community, made a lot of wonderful friends also. Okay, so I just wanted to say, well, I did make a note of it. Thank goodness. When you talked about meeting at your this group of people that meets in personal development circles, that sort of group is called a mastermind, where
Okay.
people with like interests get together to selflessly advance each other's progress and growth, to, in other words, buoy people up, help them with particular challenges, whether it's in this case, it would be the creation of art, or maybe the marketing of art, or, getting into a gallery show or whatever. So I love that concept. And I think that now with technology, it's certainly easier to find our own mastermind group, those people that we feel have the same level of generosity and ambition as we might ourselves. So in other words, people who are as easily able to give as they are to take, because takers are kind of you want to put them in the corner with their backs facing the corner. I mean, with their faces facing the corner. So people who can commit, like you kind of handpick these people. So I find that fascinating that you are part of that, and that's probably a luxury that maybe comes a little more easily when you live in a city, as opposed to this kid who lives on a farm near a village of 400 people. But I have to say, I'm feeling that sense of being on the verge of being in a mastermind group just through the miracle of technology. So I don't think I've ever talked about that in any of these videos, or in one of my videos. So I wanted to plant that seed, and hopefully maybe we'll talk about it in future episodes. But I just wanted to throw that in there, because I think you're definitely on the right track by surrounding yourself, and hopefully getting as much as you're giving, out of the group. Oh, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad I reached out to you. And just to, pretend you're not here for this part. Let me just say to the people in the chat, and anyone who might be watching the replay, that, yeah, we have 42 episodes now under our belt here. And, the word is getting out, and there's a bit of a track record. So people like Kit can go back and watch and see, well, okay, is this stranger wrote to me out of the blue? Like, is she nuts or a stalker or what the heck? So I just am becoming increasingly grateful to those people who have a following. Like, you've got 25,000 subscribers, so that's nothing to sneeze at, baby. You have the credentials after your name. You're obviously an artist a professional artist. And I'm just really glad that there are still some people out there with enough humility and generosity of spirit who maybe remember when they were beginners and feel a certain obligation to give back to the community, who actually say yes.
Mhm.
Because I'll tell you, between you and me and the fence post, I've reached out to a couple of big name YouTube people. They're in the junk journal world,
Mhm.
and never got an answer back. And I think to myself, yes, I'm disappointed. I could have pursued them and said, by the way, I emailed you, or I texted you, or I communicated with you through Etsy on October, whatever. But part of me thinks I don't need to chase down people in that way.
Mhm.
I think there's some serendipity at play here. I think that the Lord is on my side as well when I'm selecting guests. And maybe some people get a little too big for their britches. So I'm just glad that you said yes. That's a long, convoluted way of saying it, but that's what I was trying to say. Thank you for
Well,
saying yes and for being so real.
well, thank you so much, Hazel. I've really enjoyed this, and um, I did have my doubts because I get, companies trying to get me to promote their stuff on my channel. I'm just not interested in that. But I did have some doubts, but I went and watched some of your heart to heart sessions. And then I felt pretty good about doing this. So it's been fun. I've had a blast.
Well, good.
Husband interruption notwithstanding.
Well, hey, I think if COVID taught us anything, it's that anything could happen during an online get together.
Yes,
I'm just
that's very
glad you
true.
had pants on for the whole session. You do have pants on, right?
I'm not saying. Of course I do. But they're
Okay,
comfortable
thank you
pants.
so much. And again, if you have a moment to send me that thing by Ira
I will.
Glass, I would appreciate it. And if you want me to send those 5 points to you that you're not at all doing, I can do that too.
By all means, but I'm not sure it'll change me.
Oh dear. Okay, thank you everyone. Thanks Teresa for keeping us in good order here in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.